Hi, everyone. I'm Allison, a bookseller with Barnes& Noble. I'm here today talking to the wonderfully talented Margo Price, whose new album Strays is out now, and you can get your exclusive baby pink vinyl at our stores. And her book Maybe We'll Make It is also available as well. Margo, hi. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited to talk to you. I've been listening to your album on repeat. I'm digging it. I love it. So I'm very thrilled to chat with you today.
Thank you so much.
Been to the Mountain is the first song on your new album, Strays. It's a very strong anthem, and I feel the emotion coming through this song. I'm here for it. I've been blasting it, having a dance party to it. I love it. And I think that this album seems a bit more grown up in a way, and it's coming from almost a very deeply personal place.
Well, I definitely feel like I'm growing up. So, um, yeah, it's coming from a place of reflection. It's coming from finally being really proud, just to own my truth and to own my story, the good parts and the bad. Yeah, it's reflecting on the past, but it's not dwelling there. It's very much in the present.
I really like it. Do you have any musical anthems that pump you up? I think I have a few in my back pocket, but what do you put on to dance around to?
Oh, for sure. Actually, we've been covering Elvis Costello's song that's called "Pump It Up." That's a pretty fun one to blast out. I've been playing that on tour behind the drum kit and singing it at the same time. I love hearing that people are dancing and getting psyched up to my songs because I definitely, turn on records with my kids, and that's one of my favorite things to do, really, is the Patti Smith's album Horses. I just finally got that on vinyl. I couldn't believe that I didn't have it sooner, but definitely putting on Gloria and
Yes.
exorcising demons is fun.
That's such a good way to put it, exercising demons. Yeah, that's kind of what I feel like when I put like there's those songs that you just
Oh, yeah.
everything else drowns out. So let's just start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to play music? Is your family musical?
So my family is not the most musical. I mean, I have my great uncle, he's a songwriter and he played music, but my parents, like, they didn't know how to play an instrument. They never, had the money to have those kinds of opportunities. And so they wanted to make sure that I did when I kind of showed um my interest in music. It was there from the start. I loved singing along to, songs that I found on the radio, or my parents got me a little record player when I was young, and so I was always dancing around and then yeah, they put me in piano lessons, and that was kinda the start of it, was sitting down at the piano and figuring it out there. But very quickly, I thought that a piano would be a little too hard to drag around at gigs, so I went out and I got my first guitar when I was, in 8th grade and taught myself to play.
You play a few different instruments. Do you have a favorite one? Do you feel connected to a different one? You play piano, guitar, and drums, right?
Yes, I do. I have, actually my drum kits right over here, one of them, it's, leopard print.
I love it. Uh-huh.
And I've got, some guitars here around me. This is a guitar, that has been signed by just about every single one of my heroes. I got Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris and Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, um, Tanya Tucker, Bobby Bear. There's a lot of people that signed that guitar.
That's
But
amazing.
I think, piano was my first love, and I still love to write on it. When I'm home and the house is empty, I sit down at the piano, but I'm most confident on the guitar for sure.
Is that what you write most of your songs for? Do you start with an instrument on when songwriting?
Sometimes, I think songs are really mysterious in the way that they come to you, and so some songs I sit down and I have a melody first, or other songs, just the melody will come to me if I'm out in nature. I like to go take lots of like runs in the woods by myself or with my dogs, and sometimes a melody will just kind of come into your head, and then you have to go find what chords it is later. And then when my husband and I co-write, then songs are being talked out loud and the guitars are being passed, and yeah, they're all kind of different. They're all special in their own way.
Yeah, for sure. You have some amazing duet partners on Strays. Mike Campbell from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Sharon Van Etten, Lucius, and you have legends on other albums as well. Emmylou Harris, Jack White, Willie Nelson. I mean, what is it like to play with those people?
It is surreal, and not a second goes by where I don't realize just how lucky I am to be able to play music for a living. I never thought that it was going to take off. I mean, when I was young, I did, but then as the years wore on, and I just
Yeah.
kind of kept getting sucked into bad label deals, or just working with managers that had empty promises and couldn't get labels to sign me, couldn't get producers to work with me, couldn't get managers. So now it is very surreal to be like having Thanksgiving with Willie Nelson and just sitting at the table telling jokes with him, and it's very wild. It's a wild dream.
You've had Thanksgiving with Willie Nelson.
Yes,
That's amazing.
this last Thanksgiving we went to Maui, went to Hawaii for the first time, and his wife Annie invited us over, and yeah, we had a really wonderful holiday.
That is so cool. Do you have any dream collaborators? So, I mean, you've worked with all of those legends, and is there anybody else? I mean, after Willie, who else is out there? But do you have any dream collaborators? And then also, like, what happens after you work with somebody like Willie Nelson? Are you just like, that's it, I'm done? Nobody else, but I've done it all.
I always am up to sing harmonies with people. I love that, Emmylou Harris was just so good at
Yes.
kind of adding what she did to all sorts of different projects, like her working with everybody from Bob Dylan, Gillian Welch. It's like um I would love to, in the future, I would love to work with Stevie Nicks. I think she's got a really incredible, distinct voice. I have really had the opportunity to work with so many wonderful folks. Like I was going to do this song with Ronnie Spector. We kind of became pen pals, and I wrote this song with my husband Jeremy, and we thought that she would sound great on it. And then she passed away before she could get into the studio, and then I ended up reaching out to Mavis Staples, who's just like such a hero of mine, and so she sang on this song, and my friend Adia, and it's a song called Fight to Make It. We donated the money to reproductive rights, and put it out via Bandcamp for a while. It's still on there. Yeah, stuff like that is really what kind of keeps me going, and it's really wild.
You are such an activist too. And I love that. And I love so many of your songs are about women's rights. Like, and I think women's voices are just starting to be heard again in country music. And, you have songs, Wild Women and Pay Gap, and you write what I think of as progressive country music. And it's not what has historically been associated with the genre, but I think there's a new movement, if you will, of artists coming to play more progressive lyrics and stuff. And I think there's definitely a space for it, and I think it's going to bring a newer generation of fans too.
Yes, I think for years women have been trying to tell their stories, and they have very slyly been doing so. I mean, Loretta Lynn, she was such a rule breaker, and she really broke a lot of doors down. I think over time, there's been waves of just good real music, and stories of the people. But for years country music has kind of quietly shut out Black voices, just people of color, people with different points of view, and definitely women's voices have have been marginalized, and we've been silently banned from the radio waves. And especially if you talk about the cracks inside the system. I think we're making some noise, and I think that there's some of the best voices out there finally being heard, and it's becoming more diverse. And I really have to thank the Americana Music Association for also, supporting, voices even like Brandy Carlisle, and there's a lot other artists that we need to be hearing from out there that need to be heard.
It seems like also such an inclusive group of folks too. Like, I mean, you guys all duet with each other, and people always bringing each other on tour and kind of giving each other a platform and space to perform as well, which I think is so important and just so helpful to get other people's voices out there too. There, I know people have been performing for decades and are, just now coming to more of the forefront of the genre.
For sure. I think that, with what tech companies and streaming companies, it's important that we stick together as artists, because it is a really difficult business. And I think COVID and the pandemic really just shined a light on a lot of the things that need to change, because touring is our well-being, and it's hard to get recognized as a writer. It's hard to get paid for your writing and for your songs, just because of the internet and how music has kind of been devalued, and art and literature and all the good things in the world.
Yeah, it's so interesting though, because I was just going to comment on the internet, and that's true that it does make it so accessible that then you're not making the earnings that that historically artists have been making. But I think that's also how some of the more marginalized artists are able to be discovered too, and kind of push their way forward is through the internet. And you can find all of those people that you would really have to search in the very back of music stores for before. So that's super cool to see that coming too.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword with, there's a lot of things about it that are great, and there's a lot of things about it that are challenging.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility, but we haven't figured out the responsibility part yet.
Totally. It's a little too new. Hopefully, we'll figure it out in the next
Yes.
little while. In your book, you talk about creating a persona named John Sirota and to manage you. And you immediately got more bookings because it was a man reaching out. Isn't that just so? I mean, it's not surprising, but so surprising. Can you speak to that?
Definitely, you have to work. What is the term? You have to work smarter, not harder. And
Mhm.
that was kind of one of those moments, that's one of those epiphanies that I realized if I wanted to be taken seriously, I needed representation. And who better than to do it than a man who doesn't exist, who's really me.
So
So
perfect.
yeah, it was the perfect decoy, and we really made a convincing argument for our band, and we were able to open more doors. I mean, I wasn't making a living at it, but it was a step in the right direction.
It's so interesting because you worked really, really hard. I mean, in your book, it states from when you started and how you toured, and you guys really just dug in, paid your dues, and really, really went for it. And I think that it's so interesting because there are artists who are no less talented. This isn't a knock on their talent, but they kind of get discovered. I mean, when they're like 20, 21 years old, and then they go and they sell out mega arenas, and that's cool. But I think there's something to be said for artists such as yourself that really you've made all these connections, all these people in the music business, you're there for the music, not for, I mean, the attention's great, but I think it just shows like it's a true passion rather than wanting to be famous. It's like I have to do this thing.
Yeah, it's easy to get focused on the wrong thing nowadays, and I feel very lucky that I grew up in a time where there wasn't social media, and just kind of how that affects your brain into thinking that, you don't have X amount of likes, that, you're not popular. Really, we have made music and art in a lot of ways just kind of like a sport. And I think that probably TikTok and a lot of these like singing competitions. It's just a different way to kind of get famous, but I don't want to just be known as someone who has like an incredible voice or is just this like karaoke singer like doing other people's songs or something. I'm working really hard to stay grounded, and I think it's difficult. I really worry about kids growing up today.
I think it's also interesting reading about your evolution as a songwriter, because you spoke a little bit about, your early songs not being so great, and kind of getting feedback on them. And I think that's so comforting to people trying to be songwriters, because it's so easy to be like, they're so good, and all we hear is the good stuff. So I think it's always really beneficial for people to hear it took you a long time, if that's fair to say, and you worked really hard at it.
Yeah, it took me a long time to find my voice. I mean, I was impersonating other people that I hear, but I think that's how we learn. And there's going to be very few people that are just like genius from the start. It's like a muscle that you have to exercise. I think, whether you're writing novels or whether you're writing songs, or, I mean, who just picks up a paintbrush and can paint immediately? You have to work at it. You do.
Mhm, mhm. It's so funny. I think it does come. I mean, and you definitely have to have an affinity for it, obviously. But it's so funny. My mom's a very talented musician, and she is a great songwriter too. And I think her brain just works that way, because there was one time I was talking to her about something, and she was like, "Well, Allie, have you written a song about it?" And I was like, "That's not something normal people do. Of course I didn't write a song about it." But for people who it's an outlet for, it's just so obvious.
For sure. I wish more people just did write poems and write songs, because I think it's such a good way to process things. And, we have when I was a kid, there were lots of music and art programs still, but I remember them slowly, the funding getting taken away from them. And it's like, we get so in our head about, is this good or not? But it's music does something to your brain that no other hobby can. When you actually see someone playing music, playing and singing it at the same time too, it's activates every single part of your brain, I think, more than any other activity. So I think that you should write a song.
Well, now that I know I don't have to be perfect at it from the get-go, maybe I'll try a little bit more. But it's true about music, because I think it's also so cool, because there's something for every person. I mean, just like with any art form, but music is so immediate. Like whatever mood you're in, there's a song for it. And whether you need classical, or if you need to rage and just scream, or whatever mood, and you can dance it out, or you can cry to it, or anything in that immediate moment. And I just, it's so powerful.
Being an active listener is an art form that's also, kind of dissipating. And I feel like it's so cathartic to just put on a sad song and just get it all out
I totally agree. On repeat sometimes.
on repeat. That's right. People listen to sad songs more. So
That's true. Yeah. So you've done music on your terms. You wouldn't change your sound when approached by a big record label. You wouldn't be mega produced. And still you're touring a whole lot, and you've gotten a Grammy nomination, and you seem to still be doing it on your terms. Is that validating to know that that worked out?
yeah, I've had people along the way try to convince me to do things that I didn't feel right about. And, that still happens. People around me have suggestions for my work and my art. And I just have to really choose my battles and stand my ground. But it's a lot easier to do that because that is how I got my foot in the door.
Mhm.
And, Third Man kind of gave me this like all accepting, love me for who I am, love the songs, didn't want me to change anything. And so that was really kind of the start of validating where my heart had been all along.
I imagine that for a performer, you daydream about what it would be like to get the call that you were nominated for a Grammy. But what is it like to actually get the call? And I don't mean like, what did you do that morning? How did you react? But I mean, like, now you have your career in front of you as a Grammy nominated performer. Does that, I mean, it's got to be kind of like duetting with those legends. Does it change your perception or your experience?
I don't think about it a lot. I definitely wasn't expecting it the morning, that I got that call. I just had slept in, and, I was in the studio making my, That's How Rumors Get Started record, and I had all these, like, missed calls and text messages. My phone was, like, blowing up. I thought somebody died.
Sure.
And then, it's kinda like anything else in life where it's like you get this big, like, rush of dopamine and endorphins and, like, great feelings, and, as time goes on and, it with all the high highs also come great lows, and so, you get nominated for a Grammy, and then you lose the Grammy, and you go to the Grammys and, you're pregnant and you don't get to perform. I always look at the people who didn't get Grammys for great records, like Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, classic album, didn't get a Grammy. Joni
Mhm.
Mitchell, Blue, did not get a Grammy, and then years later, they give her a Grammy for something else? So it's something that I like to try to not think about too much because it comes with all these, like, these different waves of emotion for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Um, Writing songs can be so personal. When you perform songs from a specific time, whether it's good or bad, can it be hard to perform it for an audience?
Definitely depending on the emotional and mental state that you're just in anyway.
Hmm.
Sometimes, lyrics or songs that I've written, they can hit you out of left field and kinda catch you off guard, or I've been singing Hands of Time for a really, really long time, and every now and then it will kinda be like a vacuum of your emotions where you kinda get sucked into it. We've been doing this, unreleased song, well, it's on the upcoming album, but it's this song called County Road, and, it's about a friend of ours who we lost, much too young, and, it was kind of a tragic way that he left us. And so I have to disassociate a little bit because, if I really think about the words and what it means to me and kind of that whole time period, I'll get really sad, and then I won't hit the notes right, and I'll almost be crying and look like a mess. So sometimes I have to just kind of close my eyes and just focus on, like, delivering with emotion, but not with so much emotion that I end up curled up on a ball on the stage.
Sure. That makes total sense too. So you moved to Nashville when you were 20 and you just kind of went for it. Can you believe it? Can you look back and think of that young woman and what that was like? And what would you say to her?
I would tell her to hold on for dear life because it's gonna be a wild ride. It really does kind of seem like I'm just looking back on a completely different person because I've been here for almost 2 decades, and, while it went really fast, it also was slow, and I don't know if I went back and I knew everything that was gonna happen, I'm glad I didn't know because, it protected me from a lot of heartache, but I feel excited about where I'm at. I feel like I'm finally in a good mental state. I kinda thought that once my music took off, that everything was just gonna be smooth sailing, and it kind of wasn't the case. It was really turbulent. So now on the backside of everything, I feel like I'm finally feeling healthy in my mind.
Do you ever feel like you're waiting for your real life to begin? Like I think back on my life and I mean not that I'm a famous singer, but like I live in New York City and crazy things happen here, good and bad too. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm gonna now go have my real life.
I wish I would have lived in New York City before I had kids and settled down. That is like one of my goals for sure, at some point in my life. I like to try to be really excited about the present because sometimes you think that things are like in the bad times or in this not settled place, but then once that's gone, you're longing for that. So I really try to soak it in, but
Yeah.
it's
It
fast.
can be hard, yeah. One thing I love about you is you're very unassuming, and then, on your live record, you'll yell out, "I wrote this while I was in the Davidson County Jail." It's like, "Who is this girl?" You have some wild stories for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I am pretty unfiltered, and I do try to think about what I'm saying because sometimes the way that I am will get the best of me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
but it's also very endearing.
yeah. Well, I hope so because for a long time I held a lot back and, even for my family and friends, like people just didn't know what I was dealing with because I was really embarrassed of it. But I think when you can look back with some humor and laugh about your mistakes, and most importantly, learn from them, you're going to feel a lot better once you get it off your chest. It's hard to hold everything in and pretend like it's perfect when it's not.
So in your book, I read your book and I understand what was going on in your life when you were in jail for the weekend and you were reacting to something so deeply devastating. Would you be open to talking about Ezra and your experience?
Yeah, I think that so many women, go through what I went through, actually so many, just so many parents in general. And it's still taboo to kind of talk about loss sometimes. And I think that if our culture was really just more open with death and with our birth stories, I think that it would help a lot of people.
I totally agree. And it's such a hard thing to go through that I also think you can't understand until you go through a loss. And then it's like you're part of a club. And then it's easier to talk about it with people like that. But it's hard to talk about it, I think, because as a society, we're not so clued into all of that stuff.
For sure. I mean, even just postpartum depression and yeah, what childbirth and the American healthcare system. I was in a really dark place after losing my son, and I was worried about the stigma of getting therapy. I tried to go a little bit when I was really, really struggling. I went just a couple times and I just lied to my therapist the whole time. And just recently, over the past like year and a half, I have been doing therapy for the first time in my life. And it's just funny how like I think my folks' generation, um, you just don't want to go to therapy because that must mean that there is something wrong with you. And I I really am enjoying talking about it all out loud, just because I don't think that people need to live that way. There were times where I definitely probably should have been medicated, and I should have been going to support groups. I should have had something, some kind of aid to help me get through that. But instead, I was just self-medicating. I was just like numbing everything and pushing it all down. And I'm still kind of just processing a lot of that because I quit drinking. So now I'm just kind of really learning to feel a lot of feelings that I just thought that I shouldn't even have.
It's so interesting, therapy and mental health and all that, because there's a point where where one has to also be ready to go, and you can only receive that stuff when you're ready. So once our society gets better with accepting that and being open to it, I think it will be easier. But we have to give ourselves grace when we're not ready to go, and then there's a time that we are, and it's never too late.
Exactly. That's what I keep telling my mother. I'm 70. I can't go to therapy.
You can. Anybody can go.
I'm like, you're not 70 yet.
The last song on Strays is Landfill. And I find it to be an extremely reflective song. And it reminds me of Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, and how that one's a little bit of a reflective song. Um, and there are a few lines that stood out to me. And the first one is, no one tells you when you're young, you have so much time, you have so much to lose until you see it slip through your hands. We're similar ages. I think you're just a couple months younger than me. And I've been reflecting on age and life a lot as I entered this new decade. And this line really stood out to me.
Yeah, I know. It's time just starts moving quicker and quicker when you have less of it left. And I think everybody eventually goes through trials, hard times, loss, um, when you are getting older. And that is kind of one thing that I have really been grateful for, is just that perspective. And I think that my loss really changed me, in the fact that it gave me a lot of compassion. And of course, I wish that it didn't happen, but I know that, everything happens for a reason, and I'm grateful for what it taught me.
The other line that really stuck out to me in that song is, I put myself in my own painting. The pictures are always changing. And it sounds to me like a little bit like you're able to put yourself first and giving yourself some grace after the last couple of decades. Is
Oh,
that at all true?
I like that perspective. I was just like, kind of, well, my husband and I wrote that like on this beach, and it was kind of, when I wrote that line, I was kind of thinking about songwriting and storytelling, and how you can like paint yourself in any way that you want. But I always love hearing where other people pull from.
Does it bother you? I mean, because I guess when you're a songwriter, you put it out there, and so everybody's going to have a different perception of your lyrics. Do you appreciate truly other people's
Oh,
perception
for
of it?
sure. I think, Willie Nelson, he does not tell anybody what his songs are about or what the lines are about, because he wants other people to interpret it in the way. And then that's what I think makes art really powerful, is that like everybody kind of has this different association to different words and experiences. And I've actually keep telling myself, I'm like, I'm not going to talk about what this line is about or what this line is about, because I do want other people to just find their own meaning, find their own truth with it.
I think it's nice, and it's a cool thing to share with other people and pass along to your friends. And, when they're going through a hard time, I send people songs. I'm like, this song, listen to it. It'll help you, I think.
Same.
I grew up singing, and I come from a very musical family, as I mentioned, but I don't do so much with it now, and I do miss it. But for you, it seems like this was the only thing that you were destined to do, that you wanted to do. What is it like to not have anything else in mind? You got rid of your TV. You guys sold your car to make it happen. I mean, you and your husband really were like, this is what we're going to do. It's amazing to have that much focus. And you said earlier, you guys got taken advantage of and got hooked up with the wrong people. And you guys really had to work hard for it. What is it? I mean, you guys, at any point, it could so easily have been you guys saying, we're out, see ya. But you just had it in you.
Well, I think that there's also some kind of like insanity in that, and I think that that's like one of the things that I realized about my personality, that is both a skill and also a little bit self-destructive, because I will do things that maybe is not the smartest idea, but I just can't help it. And it really was like um just this like addiction. It fed our souls. And of course there was times where I thought like, oh my gosh, like I need a backup plan. And I had like at one point bought a bunch of cameras and like film cameras, and I thought maybe I'll be a photographer, or but I wasn't very good. I couldn't ever get the light right. And it was blurry, and I was wasting the film. So really it was just kind of, because that was all I could do well, was really just sing. That was it.
It's so funny that your backup was going to be something else creative, though. You clearly were on a creative path of some sort. That was what you were destined for.
Yeah, I mean, and I loved teaching dance lessons to young
Mhm.
kids as well because that was creative. You know, working the waitress thing and the other jobs that I had to kind of take in the meantime, like the interior painting and stuff, like that's creative as well, but it's also really hard work. In the waitressing, that was not quite as soul fulfilling, but it was more soul sucking, but it was
Not as
good for me.
creative.
And I was good at it. I was creative about how to get the best tips out of people by kissing their ass.
I do think that's one job that everybody should have, though, in their life, because man, it gives you such a perspective on humans.
Yes, 100%.
Talk about compassion. Who was your first concert?
My first concert, I actually went to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with my parents. I also went to the state fair and there was like I think Trisha Yearwood played. I also went to the county fair. These are a couple of my very first memories of
Mhm.
concerts. Just the local county fair that was really small, and there was a 90s country artist named Susie Boggess that
Mhm.
had taken off. She had hit it big, and she was from my town, and she sang at my mom and dad's wedding, and so we went and saw her play, which was just really cool to see someone from my hometown that like did have songs on the radio and was touring and doing it right.
How cool is it that one of your first concerts, now you're on recording with him?
Oh, with Mike Campbell, and
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I was very close to maybe getting to like meet Tom Petty and being able to work and record with Mike has just been such a master class in songwriting because Mike Campbell like co-wrote so many of those Heartbreaker songs. He's a genius when it comes to songwriting and one of the best guitar players like that is alive right now. I mean, he played with George Harrison. He really has a well-rounded um, education in music and just getting to like work with him and pick his brain a little bit has been very surreal after, growing up and hearing like Mary Jane's Last Dance on the radio.
Yeah. That's super cool. Is it weird to think that you're someone's first concert?
It is. Yeah.
But
I
that's
I
really
love
cool.
that though. I always am like happy to sign things for people. And when I see young kids, I try to make sure that, I throw roses at the end of my show. That's been one of my signatures. And whenever I see young kids there, I always try to send them a little piece of something, whether it's like some drumsticks or a guitar pick or set list.
That's really cool. What a cool experience for them. Do you have an all-time favorite song?
All-time favorite song. In the past, I have said Bob Dylan, Like a Rolling Stone, because I think that it's got depth, but it's also like one of the best pop songs, and it's pretty wild to think that a song like that could be massive on the radio. When you listen to the radio today, that one for me is pretty much like the holy grail of songs. And Bob Dylan is definitely my favorite writer
Yeah,
of all time. Yeah.
that's awesome. What's next for you? I know you're kicking off a tour coming to Webster Hall in New York in March. I will be there.
Yay.
What else? What can we expect from Margo after this record?
Well, I have been very excited to tour after, 2018 was the last time that I did a headlining tour. So that was pretty incredible to be able to get back on the road with my band and I can't wait to see you at Webster Hall. Please come
I'll be
say
there.
hey.
I will. I will. I'm so excited.
Yes, and I am working on a couple movie soundtracks right now. Wrote some songs for this indie film that is going to be coming out. I'm really excited about. I might dip my toe into a little bit of acting. We'll see. I've been working with a friend who's writing a script, and so that's been exciting. But I also just can't wait to to play more throughout the year, to go to Europe, play festivals. Yeah, everything is is coming back, and it kind of feels like starting over.
Yeah.
After
4 years to make up for.
absolutely, but I'm coming back like Tina Turner.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you talking with us. Congrats on the new album. Good luck touring. Have a great time. And I can't wait to see you. It'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.